Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, early break, full show ahead. Again, no game this weekend. You can look forward to other games in the Big Ten and around the country. Have you planned out your viewing schedule for tomorrow yet?
I mean,
Sip?
not really. Just I'm going to be viewing.
You're going to be sitting down by the television, hold that recliner close?
Yeah, something like that. There's like 6 games I'm very interested in. So, yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's have a big Friday. Let's close this deal.
We don't take Fridays off in this show. No,
we're not.
We take them very seriously.
We don't meander around like little feet.
Wow, taking still shots at little feet from yesterday.
The songs that meander around and really go nowhere. It's just like background. I know Little Feet's obviously an accomplished band. Just not my cup of tea, and nor are shows that just meander around with no point.
We don't do that. But I will ask you this, though. On this Friday of a bye week, it's been a while. How about a roll call? Want to do a roll call, Sip? Text line? Texters, where are you listening from? What city, what state? How old are you? 402-464-5685. Let's get a Friday morning roll call on a bye week in there. Choose a text where you're listening from. If you want to, your age and your name.
Sometimes it concerns me when you do a roll call because it suggests to me you're worried about listeners.
I'm not. I always like to see the different states people are listening from. And there's sometimes I do this, and I see like 32 states out there that are listening. Maine, Massachusetts, Texas. It's fun.
That's just fun.
It's fun for me to view that.
One. I don't know why I feel the need to share all the mundane information of the world.
Mundane.
I just put a ton of sugar in this coffee. I mean, it is.
Well, why'd you do that?
I accidentally poured it out of the bag, and just a big waterfall went in. It tastes really good.
I have not put sugar in my coffee for a couple years now.
Really?
Yeah. I used to be both sugar and cream. Now I'm just a dash of cream. Not even.
Is this restraint? Is this restraint?
No, I'm just. I don't need it anymore. I don't need all of that different flavor. Our coffee is good here.
Bagels and Joe,
Snickerdoodle coffee. Tastes delicious. You should get it yourself. If you're in Lincoln or the area, go to Bagels and Joe and get the Snickerdoodle coffee. It's really good.
Maybe I'll go down there in downtown in the morning. They have the Bagels and Joe location downtown.
Yes. Yeah.
I might head down there in the morning just for something different. I need to do stuff different.
Yes, you do. Don't get in a rut. Routine is good, but it also can be crippling at times.
Yeah, maybe I'll just go to Mexico next week.
Mitt in Arkansas out there listening this morning. We got a guy in Houston listening.
A guy in Houston.
Let me see what his name was. John in Houston.
Hello, John.
Yep.
Keep it coming, Jake.
David in GI. Scott in Stonebridge Creek. Josh in Missouri. Webb City, Missouri.
Webb City, home of Grant Wistrom.
That's what I thought.
And Tracy Wistrom.
Yes. They both are there now?
They're from there, Jake. I don't know
where
exactly they're living right now.
Greg in Indy, Mike in Kansas, John in Des Moines, Josh in Raleigh, North Carolina out there, John in Fremont, Jeremiah in South Carolina, Michael in Richmond, Virginia this morning. It's just fun to see where everybody's at.
It really is fun.
Robert in Waco, Texas.
It's amazing. I love Waco, by the way. Always enjoyed. Hey, what's his name, Robert?
Yeah.
Robert, I always enjoyed going to Waco to cover those Big 12 games. Always in that stadium's right along the Brazos River. That little quaint downtown. It was always warm and sunny. I never went to Waco when it wasn't warm.
Never been to Waco.
It's a nice little spot.
I like Austin. I like San Antonio. I don't like Dallas. I am not a Dallas fan. I'm out on Dallas. One of my best friends in this world lives in Dallas, but I think it's a boring city.
It's a little much too.
No, it's boring to me. Houston's fun though. Okay. Robert in Chattanooga. Shout out.
Chattanooga.
TC in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Cameron and KC Mo. Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah.
Did you ever hear from anybody in Lincoln?
Yeah, we do have Spencer's in Lincoln.
Okay.
David is in Lincoln.
And don't bypass our Lincoln list.
I'm not. Jordan, I think John, another John's in Lincoln there. So
yeah, I mean, we like the fact that we have a widespread out-of-state flavor, but Lincoln's our core. It'd be nice, like if someone's listening at that daycare place
right next door.
To us. Yeah,
they probably are.
They should have us on.
Put us on. Come on.
Hello, daycare.
What are you doing over there,
Yeah,
daycare?
the kids might
chime in.
It might be nice and soothing for the kids to hear us talk about the Huskers, which we're going to do right now.
Yeah, and before Nebraska, and what happened yesterday with the news with Trev Alberts announcing some things about Nebraska. Can we give a shout out to our guy Lance Leipold at Kansas again? We have a lot of plugs of Lance Leipold on the show because he's done a great job. Sip, Kansas has sold out tomorrow's game against Duke in the battle of 3-0 teams.
How about that?
This is not a basketball game of Kansas Duke. It's a football game.
Right.
Kansas Duke at the booth.
Yeah.
They call it the booth. I was at the booth last year. I told you.
Yeah, that suggests that you're a little too familiar with this whole thing.
The booth.
The booth. Well, it's David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium.
The booth.
Yes. And this is interesting to me. The sellout, it's 47,233. So I like these stadiums that we talked about Arizona State, their Sun Devil Stadium it's 49,000 capacity. Yep. KU football stadium capacity, 47,233. 47,233 but you're right. I'm excited for Lance.
I am too. Well, no, I'm going to take you back to last year for a second when I myself was at David Booth Stadium. Okay, Kansas is hosting Oklahoma in an 11 a.m. kickoff.
I remember well.
I want to take you back to the second half for a second though, because I was there the whole time. The second half, when Kansas is in the game, they're either leading or just barely trailing. I think they're still leading at this point. There is a tweet put out by the official Kansas Twitter account, the University of Kansas Jayhawks Twitter account, saying,
"Yep,
go to the stadium. It's free entry right now." And fans were flocking in there because it was free. And now you have a sold out stadium the next year.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I got to experience a very cool moment of that university. Now it's just taking off, and I hope they win, and he keeps just building an empire down there.
I mean, I legitimately thought about going down there. And then when I saw it was sold out, I was like, oh, so much for that plan.
Get a media pass.
I'm not going to do that. I don't take the media pass when I'm not covering it. That seems like not a good idea.
That's fair. That's honorable by you.
Yeah, I did it one time with Brian Christopherson. We went to a Toronto Raptors Orlando Magic game. I've told you that. But anyway, if you're not going down to Lawrence, the game will be televised on FS1 at 11 a.m. FS1 11 a.m. And I suppose that's not a game I don't know that I'll fix on that game. There's some other 11 a.m. games I'm more interested in.
Well, you should bounce around if you have a weekend.
Okay.
Off, right?
Yes.
I am saying that you should just, have that on one of your channel returns.
Kansas sold out a game in 2019 when they played Kansas State.
Okay.
So it hasn't been that long, but it's just the second sellout in 13 years. So it's just the second sellout in nearly 13 years, but they did sell out in 2019.
This is the same day that Trev Alberts in Lincoln says that the sellout streak in Lincoln is going to be week by week. Indiana is not sold out yet, and we'll see what happens this weekend and also next week leading up to that. So Kansas is selling out their stadium against Duke and Nebraska. It was, as we know, it's been an issue for a little bit now, but Nebraska is not officially a sellout for Indiana next Saturday or any games the rest of the season yet.
Yes, hold on here.
I was just making a comparison there.
No, I know. There's a couple good quotes from Trev from yesterday as it pertains to that sellout streak and the planned renovation at Memorial Stadium, which we'll get into in a second here. So the sellout streak currently sits at 385, right?
Yes.
So what he said like you said, Nebraska won't be able to announce that tickets are sold out for the remainder of the season. He said, still moving forward, Trev Alberts said, I think we had a little over 1,000 or so left for Indiana, and that has been going down. At this point, I think the reality is we are probably on a week-to-week basis. I will just ask our fans to hang in there, thank them, and mostly I'm just trying to support these young men. Trev said this. It's going to be a tough couple of months. I think we have a great opportunity with homecoming in Indiana to get back on track. It'll be a week-to-week thing. Him saying that, it's going to be a tough couple months. I guess I do. You know how I am, Jake. and I'm like this in my life, and I get a lot of heat for it. I tend to live in my own reality. And I don't think anything's going bad. I don't acknowledge it if it is. It's a sort of a strange way to live. And I like when I read that, I'm like, oh, ooh, it's going to be a tough couple months. And I know what you're going to say. Well, of course it's going to be a tough couple months.
Keep going,
right?
Keep going. What else would I say?
My God.
Yeah, come on, keep going.
They might not win another game.
That's pretty good.
Right.
That was pretty good.
Right. They have a new head coach, an interim, and they have a new defensive coordinator who is the special teams coordinator. This is not going like they wanted it to go. The West is wide open and they're not in it. I mean,
pretty good. That was pretty well done. Well done. You've been paying attention over the years. That was well done.
You know,
just like me. Couldn't tell a difference at all. Well, let me be clear. He would say that if Nebraska were 3-1, because the fact is the schedule. I mean, it's Big Ten football. It is going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's just tough.
Right.
Now, in these circumstances, it's tougher because you're 1-3, and you said new interim head coach, new defensive coordinator. It's tough with the changes, but it is generally tough because it's Big Ten football. So I understand where he's going with that.
Well, I think what he's saying is part of what he's not saying, and I do recognize this reality, is if they don't beat Indiana, then it's
God, yeah.
It gets really, really, really
yeah.
tough.
I mean, if Nebraska fails to win next weekend following this bye week, which again is very possible, nothing is guaranteed right now. Nothing guaranteed at all. You're 1-3. If you lose to Indiana, I don't know where you find a win the rest of the way. Well, there's possible ones, but that is probably your most winnable game the rest of the season.
It is probably. Illinois is the second most winnable. And
they're both you twice in a row, by the way.
They're both tough games. And you know what? What you hear a lot of, and again, I know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna say it
for me again.
Now, what I hear sometimes, I always hear fragile attached to Nebraska. Not only I hear it from the fan base, I hear it from people in my life, but now I'm hearing it from within the program. You know, I'll hear a coach say, "Well, we're fragile." I hate that. That drives me nuts, but it's true, right? So that's why that Indiana game looms large, and that it looms large in part because does a fragile team go and beat Rutgers on a Friday night?
No.
Does it go to Purdue and win? And then, so the home schedule now is the Heartland Tour. So what we're talking about, it's Indiana, it's Illinois, it's Minnesota, it's Wisconsin. It's the Heartland Tour. I mean, that's what we got here, and those are all tough games. Indiana is tough to me because Nebraska's secondary has really struggled, and they throw the ball. They're number 7 in the nation in pass attempts. Now, interestingly, they're like 99 in completion per attempt.
Efficiency is not that great.
No, 6.6 yards.
Huck and Chuck and a lot of incomplete passes.
6.6 yards per attempt, which is 99th. But they do throw it. They threw it 49. They're throwing it 49 times a game. So they're going to huck it. Yeah, they are. They're going to huck it.
Huck and Chuck, baby.
Yeah. Let's see what Chris has.
Let's get a call from Chris on the Honda of Lincoln hotline, 402-464-5685. Chris, you're on early break. Go ahead.
Good morning, Steve Jake.
Nice to hear from you.
Happy Friday.
Are you working today?
Happy Friday to you guys.
Is this a work day for you, or are you having a day off?
You betcha. I'm headed up 33rd Street, Steve.
All right. I'm very familiar with the streets. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, guys, the sellout streak, let's hope they sell that last 1,000 tickets that are left. But it sounds like, to me now, is there an underlying hint here that Trev Alberts, as far as selling the remainder of these tickets to these home games, isn't going to ask for any help?
They have the red carpet initiative still. And I don't know if he does that, Chris. My guess is he wouldn't necessarily publicize it and ask for help, but they do still have the red carpet initiative in play.
Yeah, but now, how do you guys look? Is that kind of a pass go free card?
Yeah. What do you mean?
I guess, well, it is a way to keep the sellout streak rolling.
Yeah, I think that's partly a way. And they do other things like they divvy up tickets into mini plans to move unsold tickets too. So they'll create mini plans and sell them that way. And I think they would still do that. They want to get people in the stadium.
Sure. Hey, you know what? I've always said, when there's empty seats there, God, you guys, Jake, do what they did down at Lawrence there. Put her out on Twitter that anybody, we got open seats in the southeast corner down there. Go for it.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, come on, let's everybody go. Now, I want to tell you guys a little bit here about the guy and his wife that sit next to me, and they've been up there with me for about 40 years. They've been up there since the early 80s. Well, they drive from Muscatine, Iowa.
Yes.
And he pays, Steve Jake, $5,000 a year for parking right on the north side of the stadium. He pays the $1,500. We're all grandfathered in, the ones of us that stayed up there after the skyboxes were built and club seating. He pays the $1,500 per seat per year, which I believe now is $3,000 if you want to take those seats over.
Okay.
But he also spends $600 a weekend because he stays in Omaha 2 nights.
Yeah. And
now the Oklahoma game and this Indiana game, he called me and he says, "Well, Chris," he says, "I'm sending my tickets over to you." He says, "Because we just don't want to make the trek right now, And I think, and I said, "Gary, well, does the losing have a lot to do with it?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "It does." He says, he says, "Tickets, donations, everything's paid for." He says, "But he says we're getting older. The trek's not as much fun. They're driving 600-700 miles round trip. So, but there's a lot of that goes on. And you guys, when we talk about fan support, I remember when they put these donations on these tickets, I told the guy, I still remember his name, Steve Jake. His name was Blake James. He was working in the athletic department, and he's the guy I talked to. They talked to all of us individually, and I said, "Well, Blake," I said, "all this is fine and dandy." I said, "as long as everything keeps rolling pretty good." And it's ironic, Steve Jake, that next year we were all up there in those nice seats in the clubhouse, and that was 1999, and that's the year we won the conference championship, beat Texas, went to the bowl, and beat Tennessee, ended up 2 or 3 in the country, and who would have guessed that would have been the end of it right there?
Who would have guessed? No, I know it's Chris. I've been right there with you. You know that. I didn't know you during these years, but we've been watching the same thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is a steady, slow decline. You guys, I want to talk about the Indiana real quick. That does look like the most winnable game to me. I agree with you. I looked at that a couple of weeks ago. I watched some of Illinois last night. Now they played an undefeated Chattanooga team.
How'd that look?
And well,
31
Illinois plays defense.
Oh, great.
They play defense this year. They won that game 31-0. They passed the ball, threw the ball around well, ran the ball with Brown pretty well. But Illinois has a defense this year, guys. They're Bielema has toughened that team up from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But guys, yeah, it's going to be interesting down the road. And I want to mention one other thing. Yeah, I noticed West Virginia went into Blacksburg, Virginia last night and hammered Virginia Tech.
Pounded.
And now this is a team that Lance Leipold in Kansas beat at Morgantown there a couple of weeks ago. So Kansas might be the real deal here, guys. We'll know on down the line, but that right now looks pretty impressive. But guys, hey, let's hope for the best down the line here. And as far as that goes, I'm going to keep going to the games, and we'll support this team, and we'll see how everything lays out. And guys, hey, have a great weekend. Enjoy the 2 good Big Ten games we got this week: Minnesota, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, and Ohio State. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Chris. Here's an interesting thing that you don't say every day. Let's see how Kansas handles success.
Yeah. Hey, okay. On Chris's note there, he mentions that Kansas did go on the road and beat West Virginia 2 weeks ago.
Right.
West Virginia went on the road to a place that has a great defense right now. Virginia Tech was a top 10 defense. I mean, through 2 weeks.
West Virginia won that game
33-10. They didn't just win; they pounded them.
Virginia
and
Tech,
that's a team that lost at home to Kansas
that's
2
amazing.
weeks ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. 33-10, West Virginia
pounds Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
on the road at Lane Stadium.
I watched some of that game. I really like that Virginia Tech quarterback too. Got a gun.
Quarterback.
He's got a gun and he can run a little bit. He got a gun.
Their quarterback is Wells.
Yeah, Wells.
What's his first name? Grant?
I don't know, but he maybe his numbers might not have been great, but I liked him. I liked watching
Grant Wells. This year he's got 5 touchdowns and 5 picks.
Yeah,
he's already got 5 picks.
Yeah, not great. Strong arm, but
you like him though.
I do. Thank you for the update there. West Virginia. Yeah, Kansas, you legitimately want to see if they can handle success. The home crowd should help them. That's a lot, though. That's a lot for those kids. It's a lot of change. Wait a second. These people care about us. This is really odd.
Watching us now? Is this stadium sold out? Is this a joke? No,
what's all this noise? They got to deal with their own noise.
I mean, I told you that, again, I'll go back to last year one more time. That Oklahoma game, it was Oklahoma in town. You would never know there's a game going on outside the stadium. I parked we got there a half hour before the game. I parked 3 blocks away. 3.
Yeah, and that's when this might sound a little odd, but Nebraska fans always should count their blessings, because you go to places where it's not like it is here at all. I mean, I've gone on the road to Michigan State and been mesmerized by how, like, even when Michigan State's good, I've been there when it's like, wow, you can drive pretty close to the stadium and park.
Yep.
You know, the stadium gets pretty full at Michigan State, and sometimes it's full. But that was the place that always struck me as an example in the Big Ten of, man, this is a good program, but I feel like I'm in Kearney right now.
What's going on here, man?
Yeah, Illinois is certainly like that, as you know. Everybody knows that. Indiana's certainly like that. We got just callers.
We got more calls to get to. On the bye week, people are calling in. We appreciate your calls. 402-464-5685. Call or text as always.
We need to, at some point, get to the comments Ted Carter, Trev Alberts, and Ronnie Green made about the Memorial Stadium renovations that will be starting. They just called it yesterday the plan to make the plan. But as Sean Callahan wrote, this project will be so massive and have so many moving parts that it'll take an entire year to put the plan together before they make it public. And they're going to have to do it. I mean, as Ted Carter said, we literally are going to be repairing and rebuilding an airplane while we're flying it. I mean, they're going to have to displace fans at some point. Jake, this is a project that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, Nebraska's got a big deal from Play Fly Sports for their 15 years, $300 million. That will help out.
God, money just flows into that program.
Flowing through.
That's a 15-year deal. I mean, Playfly's obviously banking on Nebraska to stay pretty relevant and good, or get good, because they're not staying good.
Not good right now.
Right. 15-year, $300 million deal with Playfly Sports. It's basically marketing. It's a marketing deal, multimedia rights deal. Go ahead. Let's
$300 million though. I mean, it's just
fun.
Every day you see another massive deal coming in. NIL companies, $300 million for the broadcast rights again. It's craziness.
Right. The money's it's stupid money.
The money is stupid right now.
It's stupid money.
It's like monopoly money.
Yeah.
It just flows.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't listen when people say that there's a money issue at Nebraska. I mean,
there's too much money.
They're misinformed if they think that there's any sort of money issue there. There's not.
Let's get a call from Vince in Napa, California. Vince, you're on early break. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, fellas. How are you?
How's California today?
Well, we got some rain earlier this week. It's going to heat up again this weekend. Thankfully, not like it was a couple weeks where it was north of 110 degrees.
Yeah, that's too much heat. But you need to heat up here. What do you got?
Yeah, well, before I heat up, I'm going to give you an example that as far and this pertains to the sellout streak being week to week, and this is just kind of a cautionary tale. And the Nebraska listeners may not necessarily be able to relate to it, but I think it's applicable, and because it pertains to out here. But it makes me think of Nebraska's sellout streak and the whole week to week thing. The cautionary tale should be the Sacramento Kings.
Ooh.
And here's why I'll tell you it's a cautionary tale, and I'm going to contextualize this a little bit for you. Now, Sacramento and the Bay Area are about an hour and a half apart, and Sacramento has become more like the Bay Area, and a lot of Bay Area people have moved there, because housing was cheaper at one time. So it's got more traffic, it's got more, more suburbs, but from a sports market standpoint, Sacramento is because since it's a one-team town, it's much more like, say, Portland, Oregon, or Salt Lake City or San Antonio, because the Kings are the only team. Now, granted, there's a lot of people in Sacramento that are 49er, Giants, A's, and Raiders fans, but when it comes to the NBA, the Kings are their team. And as we know, the Kings have except for a 7-year stretch from like the late 90s to early 2000s, have mostly been a tire fire. Nebraska kind of has been the last few years, but one thing about the Kings is their fans are very, very loyal. I mean, if you were seriously, guys, if you were to drop an alien in the middle of Sacramento and you told him he was in California, he wouldn't believe you. In fact, he would probably tell you he was in mid-America or something. And so, but anyhow, to finish the thought, they've had 16 straight years with no playoffs and no winning season, and they've sold the place out year after year after year. Except this last year, the number of empty seats seemed to grow pretty significant, much more significantly. Mm-hmm. Now, but the point is, as loyal as we are as Nebraska fans, I think the moral to this story is everybody has a breaking point. It's just a question of, when will somebody reach that breaking point? Because it ends up being a big sacrifice for a lot of losing. Now, granted, to your point from a few days ago, we're never going to get to a point where we're only drawing like 40, 50, 60,000 people. We're never going to get to that point, at least not in our lifetime. But point being, if the losing continues, the number of empty seats could grow. And that's where, the sellout streak, it's one of those things where it kind of feels like it's in hospice, if you will. But you know what, though, fellas? We may not have a game this week.
Okay.
We may not have a game this week, but I'll tell you one thing.
Well, yeah, please do.
Whether the sellout streak is guaranteed, whether the sellout streak is on the brink, I'll tell you one thing. When it's time to kick off, it's time to kick ass.
Okay. All right.
And
thank you.
And next week they'll try to kick ass, I suppose, Vince.
Vince, thank you. Let's get to Jesse.
Jesse's gone. Jesse's gone.
Okay.
Jesse's
all right.
dropped off.
All right. Now, renovations. We always do this. Nebraska's they're gonna start renovations. I don't even know if they said when exactly, but the university officials, what's happened, Jake, is university officials have asked the Board of Regents to approve this proposal to renovate the stadium. That approval will probably come next, they meet next Friday in Kearney. Okay. Ted Carter.
Did you really just say Ted Carter?
Yeah,
don't go last name first.
He's the president.
Ted Carter.
He said this
Carter Ted.
This renovation project of the old gray lady will be the biggest and provide the most challenges of all the renovations that have happened at Nebraska, not just football, in the last 20 years. Now this is his quote from Carter Ted. Now we're going to talk.
Saying this, Ted Carter.
Now we're going to talk about a project that is the most complicated project we can undertake. We literally are going to be repairing and rebuilding an airplane while we're flying it. He's done that, by the way. He said he rebuilt an aircraft carrier in 2006 for $2 billion that was already existing. He said, this is quote, "This is not completely unlike that, Ted Carter, except we are not replacing nuclear reactors." Then Alberts chimed in, "We don't think we are." So the biggest elephant in the room, and I'm reading right from Sean Callahan's article on HuskerOnline.com, is fan displacement. A project of this size could more than likely displace fans from their seats. This is going to be massive. This is going to be massive. And Trev said something really interesting, and I need to be more in tune with this. Albert said the reality is there has been so much change and so much technological change. And he said, I think we are behind. I think we need to dive into how do we ensure that the next 50 to 100 years of Memorial Stadium, that the fan experience and modernization is there. Do you see that? You're a 31-year-old.
Yeah.
Is it behind?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When you have an old stadium, you're always going to be behind. If you haven't done, they've done some things to the stadium, obviously. They've added some parts. They've tried to do some things to enhance it. But if you're 100 years old, you're going to be behind. They haven't done a mass. They added seats years ago to the East Stadium.
Yeah, that big air. The East Stadium's massive.
Yes, right.
It's a monolith. Yeah, and you got to sit way up in those.
Anytime you have an old stadium, you're naturally going to be behind. You're not going to rebuild the stadium. You're going to try to enhance the stadium that you have.
Okay.
Of course, they're behind.
So then there was another interesting thing that you can comment on this too. This is the alcohol thing and future alcohol sales in Memorial Stadium, which just doesn't sound like it's
I know.
anytime soon.
Well, he mentioned that that people enjoyed the beer at Garth Brooks, but they didn't realize the day after the problems.
He said
issues of the day after.
He said that the biggest thing that the Garth Brooks concert in the summer of 2021 told him about future alcohol sales in Memorial Stadium was this: we are not ready. He said everybody had a great time, but nobody was here the next day when it wasn't such a great time cleaning up. You made a mess, Jake.
All my 4
You
beers
made a
I
damn
had,
mess.
I hit the trash can with. Thank you very much.
Did you? Okay.
I didn't just stomp on them and leave them in the stadium.
What did you do?
I am a responsible man when it comes to that stuff.
Did you leave clothing
I
there?
throw my garbage away, and I recycle if there's recycling available. That wasn't me, Trev. Trev, if you're listening, it wasn't me. I partook in the alcohol.
Think about others.
But I cleaned up my alcohol.